Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen,
And I'm John Johnson.
and you're listening to Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, comics we want to read, and everything in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
Today we're doing a
X-Tastic.
an X-Tactic.
X-Tastic?
Yeah, I don't know the word. We're doing another X-Men book, which is, this was like a different kind of book. It's called a graphic novel, but it's only 84 pages or something like that.
That's pretty short.
It's pretty short. But if you think about it, it's actually like 4 comics altogether, so it's kind of a story arc all in one. But yeah, we did X-Men, God Loves, Man Kills. And this is like an interesting book. Apparently, this wasn't supposed to be in canon necessarily for a while, and then eventually it did become canon, I think, when X2 came out. Because this is, for all you who don't know, this is basically the plot of X2.
Yeah.
X-Men 2, yeah.
But
there's William Stryker in it, and he's not a religious zealot, but he's trying to get Cerebro and Charles to kill all the mutants, or reveal all the mutants and stuff, and then, so it's kind of like similar to that, somewhat. So yeah, like, it was a very familiar story, but then it was different enough to be, new still and interesting. And I'll just start off. This is a story by Chris Claremont. It's from 1982. And the art is by Brent Anderson. I haven't really heard or seen anything from him that I can know off the top of my head, other than this story.
You would know better than I would. So
Yeah, have you read this before?
No, like I mean, as reading it, I was like, oh wow, like I see the similarities. I feel like I know the story, but
Yeah.
it was way different enough that it made it fresh, entertaining, and impactful. Honestly,
Yeah, and it was impactful, but it definitely felt like almost the same stuff, like the same feel and everything as Days of Future Past trade that we read.
yeah,
That episode from, I don't know, episode 7 or whatever.
that was early.
That it had the same feel, which makes sense because it's Chris Claremont still writing, but it had the same cast. It had Kitty Pryde, and she's the same and kind of as she was in that, even though that was like her introduction. She still seemed a little like younger than everybody and more like not really part of the X-Men yet 100%, even though she was. But it was good though. I liked it. It had like a good feel to it.
Oh, before we get any further, I want to make note. I've got the sniffles today. My allergies are kicking my butt. So if you hear them, I apologize.
Yeah. Tell John to shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
with his
let us know in the comments. Turn your mic off.
Yeah. Yeah. And like we said, this is an original graphic novel, so it wasn't part of the main story. Kind of like I thought this was actually going to be like Days of Future Past, where it was just an issue that's in the middle of the continuity. But it wasn't. But it felt like it was because it had the same characters and the same cast. It was like a big, heavy-hitting story, but it wasn't. It didn't feel like it was out of the usual for Marvel X-Men stuff from back then. And like the main characters of this story, just so everybody knows like what X-Men we're talking about. So you got Charles Xavier, Cyclops, Wolverine,
Storm.
Kitty Pryde, Storm, Colossus's sister Ileana, who she didn't seem to have any powers in this.
No, yeah, she not that I could tell, yeah.
Yeah, and then Nightcrawler, and then Magneto is in it as well, even though he's not X-Men, he's in it. And then the main bad guys are William Stryker, who is a reverend in this, not a military person per se. And then his associate, who like his main henchman named Anne.
Anne.
Who I wasn't really gonna like, say her name or whatever. But then something big happens at the end that involves her, so I was like, oh, I guess I have to put her name in it because she's in most of this book, and then. It's not just like, and then henchman number 1 did this. It's like, oh, I gotta say Anne, so it's relevant. But yeah, so I looked it up just to see like what people thought of this book as far as like where it's supposed to fit in continuity, and they say it's supposed to fit around issue 167 because I guess like Cyclops left the team after that point. So It had to be before that point, but it's I guess because Ileana's in it, Colossus' sister. It has to be after a certain point in their continuity for Uncanny X-Men. So they go like, oh well, it's around 167 that this would happen.
Okay.
So, but like I said, now it's considered canon. So it's not part of the regular Uncanny X-Men run, but it is considered canon, and it is a popular book that people like a lot.
Like if we were saying, there's enough impactful stuff for sure that you could see, like, even if Scott leaves, there's even in this, like, he's got a pretty big moment. So.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of key moments in this book, I thought, or at least ones that felt key, like, oh, this, I remember this from the movies and stuff. Like, they get referenced a lot in pop culture, if not just in general, like, or if not in like the X-Men comics themselves. But and then I guess there was like later on there's like a God Loves Man Kills Part 2.
Oh, okay.
Which I don't know what it's from, an Extreme series. It's Extreme. So I'm like, is this like a 90s thing or what is this? But probably if it's called that,
yeah,
or like early
Extreme.
2000s or something. Yeah.
Or what? This kind of wraps up nicely. So I wonder where.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Stryker comes back because he lives at the end. So, yeah.
I don't know.
So yeah, this one starts off like pretty hardcore. Like we see mutants are being hunted, and specifically in the very beginning of this book, 2 mutants are being hunted.
2 kids.
2 children mutants. They're African American, which I think is supposed to be extra hard hitting, like, because it kind of resembles, like racism and, black kids getting murdered in the South or something. So it kind of brings back those memories, even if I don't know if they were trying to do that, but it definitely compares. You can't help but compare the two in your head if you know that history and then see it on the page, and then you find out, oh, they're literally just killing them because they're mutants, and then they just shoot a kid in the head. There's like a boy and a girl, like a boy and a sister. They shoot him. They shoot him in the head, and they shoot her. And
she's like, "Why?" She's like, "Why?" And they're like, "Because you don't have a right to live."
Yeah,
it was.
You damn mutie.
Yeah, it was terrifying.
Yeah, it was bad.
Right out of the gate.
Yeah, and so like they don't. This kind of sets it up like they don't pull any punches, and I kind of think maybe that's why it was a graphic novel. Like they can't be that hardcore in the main series, probably because like comics code and stuff or something. I don't know, but yeah, like this definitely felt a little bit heavier than a regular book like would be from the continuity. But I think that kind of adds the coolness of it, like even like the X-Men Days of Future Past had it was so quick because it was only one issue, and it kind of, the coolness of it was like, oh, this is different and interesting, but it could only be one issue, and it couldn't do certain things, like it couldn't push certain boundaries. So this definitely had more boundary pushing and stuff than it normally would have, I think, because it is like a graphic novel, like a separate thing. But then, but now it's part of canon, so it's kind of extra cool because it's like even better than the regular comics back then, kind of thing. And then, so right after they kill the kids,
they not only they kill them, they kill them like when they're running and they run through, having to run through a playground, and then they like tie them up on the swing set and like display them.
Yeah, they're like, we want the children that come to this playground tomorrow to see these kids and be like,
and they write like
watch out,
mutie across the swing set, or on their chest or something. It was
and then but before that happens, before the sun comes up, Magneto, I guess he's been following these people around or something, trying to like figure out what they're doing, and he takes the children, the bodies off the swing set, like with his magnetic powers, and floats them up, and then I guess buries them. Or he doesn't really show what he does with them. He just, is like, how dare they or whatever, and yeah, they will pay. He gets all mad. And this is kind of a big book for him too, because to me he seems way more sympathetic in this book because of how hardcore the humans are going after mutants, and then he's not nearly as crazy either in this. Like he's not. Like Magneto's generally like, the mutants we're better than humans, so we'll surpass them and they will be our not our slaves, but like, they won't be our equals or whatever. So when he says stuff like that, you're like, okay, well, obviously we can't have that. But he wasn't saying that at all on this. He was just like, I just think humans should treat us better or whatever. He was even like, instead of fighting, he was talking more and stuff too. And he wasn't just like murdering people, even if they were terrible people or whatnot. So that was interesting. But yeah, so then we cut to like Kitty Pryde, and she was at like a dance class or some shit. And it's like her fighting with this boy that was in her dance class. And you're like, I wonder what happened. And like Peter, what's his last name? Colossus, whatever.
It's Colossus. Rasputin.
Duh. Okay.
How do we not remember that?
Yeah. So Colossus is there to pick her up or whatever, and then the teacher runs out and is like, what's going on? As she's like she gets punched in the face by this boy. I was like, what the fuck? Like you just punch Kitty Pryde in the face and no one does anything after, like, I guess, I mean, it says she swung at him first, but I'm like, yeah, but you don't.
Well, that's because they saw kind of what was on TV, like Stryker happened.
No, the kid did, right?
Yeah, but he was talking about Reverend Stryker.
Right, but I'm saying, why would they let Kitty Pryde get hit in the face?
Oh, just in general. Oh, yeah, I don't know why.
A girl getting hit in the face by a boy seems like it should have some kind of bigger freak out from the adults than there was.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they're just saying because she's an X-Man, she's a strong female character. I don't know for sure.
Or just like, yeah, maybe because she's an X-Men, she's like, like Steven Seagal's hands are registered weapons or whatever.
Yeah, maybe she can take care of her own, and that's why she's like, she can take a punch, and she's like, she's ready to go still. She's like, how dare you?
Yeah. So, but they didn't seem too worried about it, even though she did get hit. And then we find out he basically was like, all I said was like, my family, believes that all mutants should be like murdered and and they're not really people or whatever. I don't know why she's freaking out. So it's kind of like, all right, this kid's a douchebag or whatever, And then they're like, okay, well, we'll take care of him. Like, get out of here, you dumb kid. And then the teacher's like, well, there's just words, Kitty, you shouldn't freak out so bad about it. And then this moment happens.
Like we already know the comic's hard hitting, but when this comes, it was like, whoa! Like it didn't pull any punches. I did not expect this.
It didn't pull punches, and the first time I read it, I was like, I don't know if that's okay. Then the second time I read through it, when I was like kind of going back over everything for notes, I was like, you know what? The way she says it is really hard hitting, and it does like have a purpose. So it's to me, it was okay because of the context of everything that happens. But basically, Kitty Pryde's like, oh, just words. Well, would you say that if the kid had said, oh, you're just an N-word lover? And because the teacher was black. So it was like, what? You can't, like, should she have said that to the teacher? Probably. I thought at first, I was like, oh, wait, that's like way too far. It seemed kind of like out of nowhere the first time I read it, but then after I read the book all the way through and then saw like how fucked up Stryker is and stuff, not that we didn't already kind of show how fucked up he was, but it was just like, I don't know, it was so early in the book I wasn't sure exactly how far this book was going on certain things, and this seemed like really out of place the first time I read it, and then the second time I read it, I'm like, oh, okay, like the way she says it is, would you say they're just words if I was dating a black kid and that kid told me, you're a N-word lover or whatever. So, so trigger warning for anybody listening to this or wanting to read this book. But yeah, it's a hard hitting thing. And then when they're about to leave, or no, Kitty leaves, and then they're like, don't worry about it, teacher. Like, Kitty was just angry, and she's like, no, you know what? Like, she's actually right. Like, I wouldn't have been okay if the kid said that, and then she started to like cry. So it was like,
yeah, like the teacher was like, oh man, I can't believe I didn't put that together like that.
Yeah, and maybe even she had prejudices against mutants, but she wasn't thinking about it the same way as like you would a black person or whatever. So, so yeah, and then we go back to the X mansion or whatever, and the X people are watching a debate with Charles and Stryker, this Reverend Stryker on TV.
Yeah, while all this is going on, there's a little bit of interweaving of finding out who Stryker is. That he's a zealot reverend who is like basically he is ordained by God, and God tells him that mutants are basic.
Well, in quotation marks, God tells him that.
God tells him, yeah, quote, and that mutants are like Satan's spawn. And they have no place on Earth, and he's gonna figure out a way to take care of them.
Yeah,
he says. Hopefully, he knows of the X-Men. He knows like all of this background information.
And that was I was confused a little bit because he's like Charles Xavier's like, how does he know about my powers? I'm like, do we not know about the X-Men in this world yet? Like I guess at this time the X-Men were incognito still, so like no one knew, no regular people knew who the X-Men were. Or that Charles Xavier was the same Professor X, even though they both are in wheelchairs and are bald white guys that aren't in a disguise. But maybe they don't, he doesn't fight, I guess, generally. So
that, and they probably had enough reconnaissance on. I mean, because they show he has these followers that those are the ones that killed the.
Yeah, Stryker does. Stryker has a lot of followers that were getting info on all these mutants and everything around.
And where did the Purifiers?
The Purifiers are the names of the guys that have like the big suits.
Okay.
So I don't think the regular people are called Purifiers. I don't think Anne is a Purifier.
Okay.
But the Purifiers were specifically like dudes in these big suits that could take on mutants and wouldn't get hurt in the suits. So but that's a little bit later on. But so like we said, back at the mansion, the X-Men are watching Charles and Stryker on TV, and they're about to debate, and it's not going so well for Chuck. I'm gonna call him Chuck, and this is just funny. But yeah, he I guess he just seemed like very cold and like off-putting to people in the room and probably on TV, I guess.
I think so, because the way that Charles kind of goes after it is like Stryker will say the outlandish thing, the fear-mongering kind of thing, like, oh, they're all gonna, they have powers, they're gonna come get us. He's like, yeah, but these mutants, we are not like a monolith. We're not like a one hive mind kind of thing.
Right. But he doesn't say we either, because like we said, no one's supposed to know that he's a mutant.
He says mutants are not. That's true.
So it's like, yeah, it's a weird thing because you're like, yeah, we as the reader know he's a mutant, but like I guess the other people don't. But Stryker does.
Yeah, and Stryker keeps cutting him off too. He's like, oh yeah, well they all have a lot of crazy powers, and according to this Senate report or whatever, like it's getting even crazier. So the case closed.
Yeah.
and then the news is like, oh, this is great. We'll be right back. They always like they also cut off at like the worst times.
Yeah, like it's like Stryker planned. Like he knew what was going on in the station more than Charles was, and maybe Charles went in there with good faith, and Stryker did not. So yeah, it's kind of like a gotcha piece on Charles more, and then also we find out that because Stryker knows that he's got or that Charles is a mutant, then and he knows what his power is, that he's like telekinetic, that he like put up psychic blockers or whatever, so Charles can't read his mind. And so the people who are actually, we said the X-Men are watching the TV, but Storm Aurora is there, and that's a hard name to say. For some reason, for me personally, Aurora is a hard name to say, and it sounds dumb coming out of my mouth.
Aurora?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't say it. I'm gonna call her. I'm gonna say Storm.
I say Storm most times.
Call her Storm, and then Cyclops is there too, but they're all obviously not in uniform. So Scott and Aurora are are with him just as regular, normal, plainclothes people, and so they say like, wow, that kind of sucked. Like when he got off stage, they're like, oh, this isn't good, and then they start driving away. Then we cut back to the mansion, and like basically Kitty Pryde's like, I gotta work off all this anger. So they do like this is the only thing I'm like, this could have been cut out and it could have been like 60-page comic instead of this shit. But like I don't know why. I think Chris,
like, I would go to the danger room.
Yeah, like Chris Claremont really likes the danger room. I don't know did he come up with that? Was this a new thing at the time? I don't know, because it was also in Days of Future Past.
True.
That trade, it was very, very focused on that, like this is a new cool
We gotta
thing.
practice.
Yeah, and like they always show them practicing, and it never really is exciting to me reading it because I'm like, it's just a robot or whatever. And they even said, like, Logan says that he's like, I don't know why we're doing this. Like, it's just a fucking game. Like I it's not really killing you, so what's the point really? But yeah, they're doing that, and then we find out, like, while they're working out in the danger room playing games, Stryker is like setting up a trap for Charles and the other two X-Men that are with him, and we find out that like that's why they wanted the psychic blockers, not just for the debate, but also so that they can hide that they were gonna ambush Charles and everybody. And so they're driving by Central Park,
yeah.
And they're like, okay, now. And they basically like blow up the car. They pull Chuck out, and then they pulled everybody out, I guess. But everybody else is like it shows them, and I was wondering how did they do this, but it shows them like a guy with a rifle. You know, Scott Summers bursts out of a door, and he's like, "I'll take them on," and then they like shoot him, and his head snaps back. They don't show you where he gets hit, so you assume he got hit in the head with a bullet, because they show like an AR-15 or whatever, just like doof, you know. And then the same with Storm. She comes out and it's like doof, and then they're like, okay, we got him, and then they kind of cut away from that, and then like a phone rings in the X Mansion, and the X-Men are now like chilling after the danger room session, and Katie's like, wow, I really needed that, you know, like thanks guys for the danger room session. And then Nightcrawler answers the phone, and he's like, I was gonna say hello or whatever German way he
the Xavier Schofield is a gifted.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah. and basically it's like, oh my God.
Kurt Wagner.
Yeah.
Sorry. I think Alan Cummings.
Yes.
Talking. He did. I would say, just on that side note, he was a shining point.
I think we can all agree X2 was fantastic.
Yeah,
and that's based on this comic, so you know.
Yeah.
There's a reason why it's good. But yeah, so he gets a call, and basically it's like, hey, all your friends are dead.
Oh, holy crap!
like Charles, Scott, and Aurora are dead.
They're dead.
And yeah, so that like I think that's like they kind of set it up like issues, so like that would have been the end of issue 1, but that was the end of chapter
What's
1.
gonna happen next?
Yeah. And then so they're dead from a car crash is what they're told. So then the next day, Kitty's all sad. She's outside and she's crying outside the mansion. And Ileana, who is Colossus's sister, comes out to be like, hey, I know you went out here by yourself and obviously want to be alone, but do you want company? And she's like, no, Ileana, that's why I'm out here, dummy, or whatever. And then they get over that real quick. And then they're like, hey, there's a robot out here. Which I thought this part was like ridiculous. Like this whole kind of Kitty Pryde story arc in this is kind of, it moves too fast to be that like suspenseful, and then also it's kind of silly, but
it's all the like weird things happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like there's some kind of invisible thing that makes it blend in with everything in the front, and they're like walking the outskirts of like the school area, and they come around the side and they're like, oh, what's this like robot
like staring at the school or whatever.
Yeah.
Staring at the mansion. And yeah, so they see it and they're like, hey, let's just break it and then like wait till someone comes to fix it, and then we'll see who it is. So they do that, and then like bad guys come, and basically Anna comes, and then like two other, you know, henchmen come, and they're like fixing it. And then they do like, oh, let's scan the area with this robot, and it's like boop 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 boop, there's a mutant by. And then they see Ileana's in the grass, and Kitty Pryde just like vanished.
See ya.
Yeah, she was just like, I'm out.
she like, what does she call it? She phases
yeah.
like through the tree and up into like the top of the tree. So she's like, they can't see me up here.
Yeah. Well, and then she like goes under the ground and stuff too. So like,
oh, that's right.
She does that first. She goes under the ground, and then she goes up in the tree, and then yeah. So then they like throw Ileana in a car after they shoot her. Once again, they show people getting shot, and you assume like, oh, they're dead, but then they're not. So But you don't know that until later on. So it makes it seem like they're just murdering everybody, like straight up. So they put Ileana in the car, and then Kitty Pryde's like, "Oh, I'll sneak in the trunk." And then luckily, Anna in her fancy, evil person car has a trunk sensor.
They're like, oh, there's something happened in the trunk. They're like, oh, it must be the
must
other
be
one.
Kitty Pryde. Like, yeah, she must have phased into the trunk.
Use the knockout gas.
Yeah, so knockout gas in the trunk, classic comic trope there. And so we think Kitty Pryde is knocked out in the trunk, and Ileana's knocked out or dead in the car with them. And then we cut back to Colossus and Wolverine and Nightcrawler have gone to investigate the car crash site in Central Park. And so they're doing that, and like Colossus was pretty dumb in this comic, by the way. I was like, he seems more dumb than normal in this, or than like I've seen in other ones. But he's like, well, I guess our friends are dead there. And then like Wolverine's like, no, bub, like I can sniff them.
Yeah, they don't smell like.
Yeah, it's like there's 3 bodies here, but they don't smell like our friends because I sniff our friends all the time. And I know our friends smell, and that's not Scott's ass. So, so yeah, they like Wolverine's like, no, they're not dead. And then like more henchmen, I guess, had followed or had been like hanging out at the park to make sure when the X-Men show up to look at the crash, they could take them on. So then the X-Men are like, now that we know this is kind of like a false flag operation or whatever, like the bodies were planted. Obviously, this is a trap, so we're gonna go put our costumes on, and then and I'm surprised they let them the police let them walk around the crash site and everything, like looking at bodies and shit.
They're the X-Men.
Well, no, they weren't though. They were just regular people. They don't remember. No one knows who these people are outside of their costumes. So. They were just walking. There's regular people just looking at burnt, crisp bodies, Yeah, I guess it's the 80s. Who knows what happened back then? So yeah, so they get their uniforms on, then they like attack the car that's like out looking for them around, that's like circling the block, I guess.
Yeah, Colossus like gets in front of it and like. It's almost like the Venom comics too. It's like,
he just like he like actually rips the engine out of the car. But he's like, haha, you think that car can stop me? In Soviet Russia, cars stop you or whatever. Yeah. And then like
he's like, either I'm getting stronger or they're not making cars the way they used to.
Yeah. I wish he did like Yakov Smirnoff lines all the time in there. In Soviet Russia, car drive you. And no, but but yeah, so he does that, but then all of a sudden, this is where we first see the Purifiers, is like these big mech suited guys come down, and they're like, "We'll take you on," and they shoot Colossus in the back, and it takes him out.
Yeah,
and it takes him out right away. So it's like obviously these guys don't fuck around; they're like the real deal. But then. Right when they're about to like attack everybody else, Magneto comes and is like, haha, metal suits, bitches, I control metal. What a dumb fucking move.
That was cool because he like rips it off into pieces of them and then like rewraps them in the suit.
So they look like they're in a little cocoon, yeah. Or like a little swaddled babies. That's kind of like what they look like.
That's true because you can see their faces. That's all you can see.
Yeah. So they're taken in for questioning, and yeah, we see that basically when they bring him back for the questioning, at first like Wolverine's threatening him, and he's like, "Hey, bub, you should talk, or else I'm gonna like kill you or whatever." And he's being threatening, and then he's like, "You know what, Magneto, you're evil already, so you do this thing." So Magneto's like, "All right," and he just like tortures them, and then they're like, "Yeah, like it wasn't easy." But basically, he tortures the plan out of them, and we find out that basically what happens is they want, they want genocide most off, but they want to use Charles. They find out Charles is alive. They want to use Charles with like a Cerebro knockoff that they build to use his psychic powers. Like they're gonna brainwash him to use his psychic powers to kill all the mutants. in the world or just in a large area. I don't know. They didn't say the world, I didn't think, but
we assume that that's kind of where they're going with it.
yeah, I wasn't sure if this was. They didn't show like all over the world. I think the movie shows people all over the world getting hit by like the cerebro, brain waves. But in this, they just showed people in the relative area of where the conference was going on, or like the reverend speech was going on. So that's later on. But so then we find out that that's the plan. So okay, so the plan, like, turns out Scott's alive, Aurora's alive, Charles is alive. So now all the the X-Men know that, all the leftover ones, and now they can get a plan. So then we cut to Stryker and like his little area where he's keeping the compound. I guess I don't know where the compound is. I guess it's like, because they showed it like a bad part of town where they take Kitty Pryde later on, and it's like the Bronx, and I didn't. I guess it's the bad part of town. I don't know, but apparently at one time that was a bad part of town, and and so yeah, it's like a building there, like a warehouse, and so we see Roro and Scott are alive still, and Charles is being brainwashed. They're trying to brainwash him. It's kind of like Weapon X style, where they're like, he's in a tank, he's in like a sensory deprivation tank, and they're like feeding him like all these weird images, and there's like a preacher preaching to him. And
it was
like,
pretty cool because it was really, outward, like, religious tones of like kind of what Stryker's talking about, like how like how God told him. So he's like, there's someone talking to Charles, and is like, Charles, like, you have to cleanse the earth, for lack of a, I don't think they said specifically, of these mutants, and he almost is like, of your children, like,
right.
And then like the imagery was really crazy, as they have like Charles, like, he's like seeing himself or experiencing it, and he's like gets crucified on a cross.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And he's crucified by like
demon versions of the X-Men.
Of the X-Men, and they're like, we never loved you, Charles, and like, as they're like hammering the spikes in, and it was very heavy on the imagery. It was really, it was wild.
It was well done for sure.
Yeah.
And then we see like, oh, it's just like, obviously there wasn't really, them doing that to Charles. It's all in his head. And Stryker's like, well, it didn't take fully because he didn't like fully collapse or like give in then, but it's only a matter of time. And so, just keep it up or whatever, basically. So we see that. And then we get like this super fucking metal history of Stryker. so I gotta say, like, this is one of the most fucked up like backstories of a bad guy I've ever heard. Yeah. They do like this, and I like the art in it too. Like, they have like a almost black and white. It's kind of like, it's like gold and white, or like tan and white kind of looking.
Yeah.
But it's like the most fucked up story of a like origin story of a bad guy ever.
Is he because like, I know that like, so like the professor doesn't quite get brainwashed, and then like he's talking to Storm and Cyclops. They're in like these like chairs that like suppress all their powers, and they're like, why are you doing this? And he's like, because y'all are an affront to God. And does he tell them?
I think then he tells them. Yeah,
I didn't know if it was just telling us or if it was he was telling.
I'm pretty sure he's telling them,
because like that would be the best bad guy thing to do, is be like, let me tell you why I hate you guys.
Yeah, and I love it. I mean, I appreciate that.
Yeah,
because we don't know either. So okay, this is the craziest thing ever. So apparently William Stryker, who is now Reverend Stryker, was apparently in the military. And
30 years ago.
Yeah, 30 years ago. And his wife was going to give a baby, or was having a baby. So they, like, are rushing to the hospital, and they get in a car accident on the way there. And, like, I'm not talking about regular car accident. It's in the middle of the desert, wherever his base was, maybe, like, Nevada or something. So he's in, like, Route 66 in the middle of nowhere. And then his car flips over. Then, like, they're stranded there, and she's giving birth. She gives birth to a mutant child who I guess is very obviously a mutant. Kind of like Nightcrawler or something, maybe. They don't show the baby. He's like, so then I knew what I had to do. And it shows him, like, take a knife and stab downwards. So he, like, murders his own child. And then this is the part that I'm like, wait, what? Like, he's like, and then it was like, well, it's her fucking fault. Like,
she's like, can I hold the baby?
And he's like, yeah, hold on. And he just like, shah, like snaps her neck. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, Jesus.
Super fucked up. Like he kills his wife, snaps her neck. Then he like pours gasoline all over the car and puts the baby and her in there and himself because he's like, I'm going to kill myself. And then he lights a fire and the car explodes and he just doesn't die. I guess he just like blows out of the car while they burned to death. Or
I don't think he got back in the car before it exploded is what it was. So he was blown away from it.
Oh, is that what happened?
I think that's what it was.
I read it as he actually got in the car with them, but whatever. Either way, he lives and is not hurt by that hardly. And so then he's like, now it is my mission to like, rid the world of these fucking vermin mutants or whatever. So super fucking metal origin story. Like this dude is like one of the worst people that could ever be like a bad guy in a comic. And I gotta say, it's really effective because no matter what happens to this dude, and I don't think he gets his due in this comic, but I think maybe they were thinking, hey, we could use him later on. Maybe he's a good villain, which is true. But I wish he fucking I wish he got what was coming to him in this comic. But yeah, so we get that whole backstory. Then we cut back to Kitty Pryde and it's actually Anna and her henchmen. They finally get to wherever they were driving, which apparently is really far away from the X Institute or whatever, because they drove like all day long, and then they get to like the warehouse where everybody's being held, like Charles and everybody, and like we said, it's in the Bronx. So they pull Ileana out of the car, they bring her into the building, and then they're like, well, instead of opening the trunk because she doesn't know that we know that she's there, let's just shoot the hell out of the trunk. So they shoot it, then they open it, then they realize, oh, she's not there. And it turns out Kitty Pryde was one ahead of them.
Aha.
And so she's like, I heard the gas nozzles start to let gas into the knockout gas into the trunk. So I phased out of the trunk, somewhere. And I guess it was like, even though it said like really close, really far back, like, I don't know, it seemed like hours had passed, but maybe not. It was only like a half hour or something, but it seemed like this was way earlier back in the beginning of the drive that the gas happened. And then now she phased out when the gas happened, but she's in the Bronx still.
Maybe she held on to the tailpipes or something.
She's like underneath the car, just phased like on the car. I don't know, but whatever. It didn't matter that much because basically she phased out, like, and then Anna's like, well, don't worry. I got a little tracker device. So she turns that on and it's like, beep, 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 beep. Oh, she's 500 yards that way. So then we cut to Kitty Pryde and she's getting harassed by some street toughs who are like, being, I guess they're like gang members or something.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's right. Because she's like just outside down the road and she's like, she starts going to her. She's like, hey, guys, can you... And they're like, yeah, what's up, girl? And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to be here. Pardon me.
I'm in the wrong area, apparently. and then Anna shows up.
And they're like, what's up, girl?
Yeah.
And she's like, get out of here. I'm going to kill you. Basically.
Yeah, and she's
got
like,
what?
She's got a gun, but they're not really scared of a gun because they're like, well, there's all of us and just your one gun. And then so she starts shooting and they start shooting and they hit her with a bullet. So she's down, but Kitty's running and now like Stryker's forces are after her. So there's like this big epic long chase kind of scene, and she's running all over town. She ends up being able to make a call for like a second to Nightcrawler and the mansion and be like, Nightcrawler, I need some help. Please help me. I'm at this delicatessen or whatever.
Boom.
Yeah, and then like the place blows up or delicatessen. Sorry, I don't know why I said delicatessen for some reason. But,
we knew what you meant.
Yeah. And so it explodes because they like find her and then they keep chasing her and eventually they make it to like she makes it to like the L train and which is like above the elevated train that like runs above the city, and she phases into that, and then like they try to take her, but like the humans or there's like a cop on board.
Yeah, like some cops come there like, hey, what's going on here?
Yeah, and so they actually get shot by the Stryker's henchmen. And then right when that happens, Magneto comes and was like, haha. And like he makes them go, he like wraps them up. And then they're like, okay, we got to save this cop. So like they Magneto pulls the bullet out of him, and then they're like, I like this. It was cool. Magneto just makes a little like magic carpet, but out of metal, and then like they fly to the nearest hospital or whatever with that. So yeah, so then they just drop the guard off there for medical service, and then now that they got Kitty Pryde, they're like, okay, cool. Now we know like where Charles is and where he's storing him. So they go to like do their undercover mission to save Charles and Scott and Aurora, and they sneak into the facility. So as they sneak into the facility, basically Charles is now, his brainwashing is complete. And the first thing that Stryker tells him to do now that he's brainwashed is he's got to kill Scott, Summers, and Aurora. And so he does. He kills them, and the doctor confirms they have no pulse, they're definitely dead. For sure, 100% dead.
They just have blood like gushing out of their nose and ears. Like it's like he crushed it seemed like he crushed their brain or something.
Yeah, it was like scanners or some shit. Like their brains are coming out of their ears or something. But not that graphic, but it looked painful. And so they're dead. And then now the X-Men or the other guys are breaking in to save them, and they find like the body cart of them, and they're like, okay, well, we'll just take their bodies. Because I think Wolverine even says, like, they ain't dead. Like, these doctors don't know shit.
I can smell it.
I can smell the death on them, and they ain't smelling dead. So he's like, I know Scott's live scent any day. So, so yeah, they get Scott and Aurora, and then they also get Ileana, who's, like, being brought down for some reason. I can't remember. And then they go onto, like, an elevator, and Anna sees him and is like, hey, wait, is it Anne or Anna?
It's Anne.
Anne? Okay, Anne. Sorry. Anne is like, hey, wait a second. Why are you? And then she like realizes who it is, and they're getting on the elevator, and they're like, well, fuck you. And they like just take off. And the elevator, she like jumps on to the elevator with them, and then Magneto's like controlling the elevator, so it just keeps going up and up and up.
Yeah,
and
they're
up
supposed
and
to go to the basement, and then all of a sudden it starts going up.
Yeah, and like, and so it keeps going up and up and up and up, and it breaks out of the facility. And she's like, "Well, either I jump and make it." Like it shows her. I guess the warehouse is by the Twin Towers, which is featured prominently in this book for the most part, for like a bunch of the scenes. And so, she like sees the Twin Towers and like makes a mad jump to them. She's like barely makes it to the roof, and like I guess she can get down.
She does the roll, and yeah, well, there's access up there, I'm sure.
Yeah, just open doors on roofs for skyscrapers. Yeah. Anyway, so so they fly off, and it was very like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory or whatever.
Yeah,
the elevator just flies away like woo, and then they get back to the mansion, and Magneto's like, live. Like, they're like, maybe they just needed like a jolt.
Well, they're like, Wolverine's like, no, because they thought Xavier killed them, and they're like, no, Xavier didn't kill them. Like, they still have.
Oh, is that when he
yeah.
finds it? Oh, I thought it was earlier that he found out that he didn't kill them. So they just thought they had the bodies.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, now Wolverine is like, no, I know that scent, and that's a live scent. And so then they're like, he just needs like a jolt. They just need a jolt of electricity. So Magneto jolts them with electricity, and they become alive. So they're like, oh my God, we know what's gonna happen. He's gonna give his sermon, and he's gonna kill all the mutants all at once. And so like using Charles, and so Stryker, like I don't know if it's the next day or if it's later in the day or whatever when this is happening.
I think so. I just want to make a point of, I really liked, like, so they tell the plan, and like I like that they pan to Magneto, and Magneto has like a kind of like that epiphany, like, this sounds like my parents and World War II, and he has like a flashback, and he's like I'm going to go with you. I am basically I am an X-Men today, and
yeah,
like we have to stop this.
Yeah, I know we are normally enemies, but not today.
It was cool to see his like, oh no, not again kind of.
And that might be why he doesn't go full force at this whole thing as well. And it could also be another reason, but basically Stryker is about to give his big sermon, and when he starts doing his sermon on live TV, it's Charles starts doing his attack, like his mind attack on all the mutants. So every mutant in the area that they show like starts bleeding from the ears. Even people who didn't necessarily know they were mutants. It's like Charles knows they're mutants, so he's hurting them. But like there's a senator in the crowd who's like, "Oh, my ears," or whatever. You know, he didn't even. It seemed like he didn't know he was a mutant, or didn't know that he had the gene or whatever.
That, or he was keeping it like because the only thing that makes me think. So it shows the crowd, and he said that like they invited like all these major politicians, and then like all of his followers, obviously, because there's huge crowds of people, and there's like a spokesperson for the president that's sitting with that senator, and the guy's like, he kind of makes sense, and the senator's like, well, like I don't know, like
these ideas seem dangerous to me.
Yeah, like they're kind of. So I couldn't tell if it was like. Maybe he was secretly one, and he was just there or if he didn't know. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't tell. They didn't really say for sure or anything, and I haven't read enough X-Men from back then to know. That's this senator, you know.
I haven't either. It just honestly, it made me think of the senator from X1 and 2 that they turned into a mutant, and then he's like, "Oh,
I think that's just an X1, isn't it?"
No, he's in the second one too. I remember because
Mystique is him. In the second
one. Maybe it was Mystique as him then.
Yeah, because she takes over his role or whatever in X2. And then it turns out she's been him the whole time. So yeah, anyway, he starts, you know, making everybody bleed from their ears, and it shows like a kid in the streets, and his ears are like all bloody and shit, and he's like, and he's like in super pain. And some of the X-Men feel the effects as well. It didn't seem like Wolverine really felt any of it. Or like
he's healing real fast.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is. I don't know. Some of people seem to be affected more than others, but then basically like while this is going on, we get like the fire and brimstone kind of sermon from the pastor or from the reverend, and as he's doing that, Magneto like bursts in and is like and instead of like just going to kill him, which is what I thought Magneto would do in that situation. This is what I was saying. Like maybe this is why. Earlier when he had that epiphany, maybe that's why he doesn't charge in. Maybe he just starts trying to like talk to him like on live TV. It's kind of like he doesn't want to show like mutants killing people on live TV, obviously. So he's like I think you're wrong, and you know how dare you do this to people? This is just like the Holocaust and stuff. So he's trying to like talk to him in front of all these people.
Yeah, they even say when he comes in, like the cops like are like and they're like looks like they point their guns up or whatever, and they're like the one cop's like we should get him, and the other one's like no wait look, he pulled the roof off and then he put it back exactly how it was, like he's not here to like hurt people, obviously.
Yeah, he's just talking, like he's not attacking anybody. But then Charles or like Stryker's like I gotta get this guy out of here. So like he has Charles focus all of his psychic energy to attack Magneto. So Magneto then he's like and he like falls down, and he's so weakened from that he can't, like even his helmet falls off and everything. Like he's able to attack him through his helmet that he like. I don't know if that's actually canon. I'm just going from the movie, but in the movie he's got the helmet to block, you know.
That is canon. I know that for sure is that's part of the reason he has it. It's to stop.
Well, this is such a hard hit, and he even says like I guess Charles has been holding back because I've never been hit that hard from Charles before, like psychically. So, yeah, he falls down, and then like he's surrounded by a bunch of people who are obviously against mutants because they're there to like, you know, be at the rally for the Reverend. And then, so while that's happening, Anne is standing next to the professor, and she starts bleeding from her ears. Or not the professor, I'm sorry, Stryker. And he like turns around and he sees her, and he's like, "The hell? Like you're one of them or whatever." She's like, "No, but I'm faithful to you." And he's like, "Well, you're one of the fucking mutants. I don't care if you're faithful. Like, if you're really faithful, you like die." And like, so he on live TV, he pushes her off of like, I don't know, a 20-foot pulpit, and it like falls. She falls down and like breaks her neck, and it shows it extremely graphic. Like her head, it's like a 5-panel fall. And then it shows her neck snap into the ground, and then like dead eyes, and then like bleeding from
her
ears.
Her head is
mouth.
One way, and her body is like the other.
Yeah, it is super fucked up. But yeah, he kills her on live TV. So kind of like that's kind of like people being like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? You know, because they don't know why people are bleeding from their ears either. So it's like only Stryker knows that, oh, mutants are doing it. So they just see him murder someone on TV. And then the X-Men come to save Charles. And like everybody's like they're able to stop everything happening, and Cyclops blows up the Cerebro 2 or whatever. And so then they try to like confront Stryker on national TV, and they're like, hey, like we're the other side of this, like let's talk it over. Like I don't think that's you're a good person or whatever. So they're trying to have like a debate, but the X-Men are obviously there to fight as well if need be. And but it's on national TV, so they're trying to like show humans that we're not all about killing other humans. And so but when they start talking, Stryker pulls out a 45 and he's like, hey, I'm gonna shoot you, Kitty Pryde. And so he like points his gun at Kitty Pryde, and then you just see a panel that says bam. And this was like really good storytelling, because I was like, oh, he totally like shot Kitty Pryde. And I go to turn the page, and it turns out he got shot. And he got shot by one of the cops that were protecting Magneto. And then they're like, hey, why'd you do that? And then he's like, well, he was going to shoot a person. Like, she's an unarmed girl, even though she's a mutant. Like, you can't just shoot someone, And so, there was a funny panel. I laughed out loud when I saw this panel. There was like when the policemen are protecting Magneto on the ground. There was like a panel where it showed like three guys, and one guy was like, yeah, kill the mutie or whatever. And then there's one guy that's like, I think he's making good points or whatever. I was like, there's no way that one of these people would change their mind. Like, or that panel will never be in nowadays. Like no one would ever show someone changing their mind on the spot.
Oh, Magneto makes some good points.
You know what? Those are good points. I hated mutants before, but now I'm rethinking this thing or whatever. So that was interesting to see them actually like go out of their way to show someone changing their point of view, even though it's kind of unrealistic because at the spur of the moment. But it's like, they're trying to show like arguments are better than fists or whatever. So then Stryker gets arrested, and that's pretty much it. Like then it's back at it's like epilogue, and it's back at the hotel or back at the X-Mansion, and they're like, huh, and they kind of do like the age-old question where you see Stryker's like, oh, he was taken in and now he's released on bail for his crimes of blah blah blah. I don't know if it's for murder or whatever he got arrested for, but then it shows like they kind of do this thing where they're like, we don't know what's better. Like Professor X was like, I'm kind of thinking you were right, Magneto. Like, maybe we do need to dominate the humans since they won't accept us, and this kind of proves that they won't. And then Scott Summers or Cyclops is like, no, like Professor.
He gives, and this is like his like shining moment, because he gives like I like this as opposed to, especially more in the movies, is like this reminded me of how much a leader Cyclops is, because like
this was actually one of the better Cyclops moments I've read. So yeah,
because he has the moment where they kind of like regathers them together when they fight at that last battle at the end, and then here Charles is like, oh no, man, like I think Magneto was right, I just don't know how I feel anymore. And Cyclops is like, no, Professor, and he gives this like rebel rousing speech.
Don't you talk that mess.
Yeah, like, no, man, like we are in this till the end. X-Men for life.
Yeah. And then Magneto's like, well, I guess, tomato. Like, each of us have our own, ways to go about it. He doesn't seem like he's as like militant though at the end either.
No, he's like, are you sure, Charles? And like he sends the hand, and Charles, starts to go put it up, and he's like, I can't, buddy. And then it's like, all right, we'll see you later, old friend. And then Magneto's kind of like, well, if things get crazy, I'll be around. But whatever, I'll see you guys later.
Yeah, it seemed like they like left on good terms, because maybe he helped him so much this time or whatever, and he didn't like go crazy and kill a bunch of people.
He does call them fools, but
yeah, but he does that all the time.
Yeah, Magneto's got to be Magneto a little bit.
But yeah, so that's pretty much the end of the comic. Is there anything else you wanted to hit?
No, I mean, I did like the again that Charles had that moment, and it was cool. Like they showed Charles crying at the end, like he was.
Oh
like,
yeah,
he felt so ashamed of it, and so like I think he even says like I owe you so much, Scott. Like how can I repay you?
yeah,
And yeah, I don't know. I really like that. Basically, it really showed. I like the. I really like the kind of craze that they put on it, and I like Stryker's character kind of really getting that strong backstory. And then I really like this, and even like I think the epilogue, Scott, he's still kind of like they're still kind of like shining, like, oh, you're such a great leader, and he's like, I don't need labels, I don't need
yeah.
whatever. I'm just
trying to help my friend.
a mutant. We are mutants. We are all on this together. It was good. I liked the.
It had a good message. It really felt 80s to me too, like, especially with like the televangelist kind of angle of it.
Yeah.
Like I was like, ooh, this really feels like an 80s thing, or like early 90s thing. So it was a great story. I don't know what that being said, what would you give this one?
I liked it a lot. There wasn't. It, like I said, it really the one part you kind of talked about as you said it. I'm like, I guess that kind of could have been condensed a little bit.
The Kitty Pryde stuff.
Yeah, just the
I just think it was a little wacky because it's like it's the kid. It's a comic though, so I'm like, okay, it's comics.
They got to get her from point A to point B. Right?
Yeah.
So
they got to figure it out, and it's like for a kid reading this, you got to think, okay, how does Kitty Pryde follow it or whatever, So.
But I will say one thing this one didn't do is when the hair was black, it was black, and
You
not
can thank
blue.
Brent Anderson, for that.
Brent Anderson, yes, thank you, sir. But no, I like the art, and especially there were several panels.
Actually, he didn't color this, but yeah, he did the art, but he didn't do the colors. So whoever did the colors,
But there were several panels that had some cool moments, especially like I said, all the religious imagery that they used with Charles brainwashing was really cool. Pretty much every time Stryker was on, they kind of gave him an aura, and like at least had one panel of him like almost always surrounded in white, and like until the end, like at least either that's how we were supposed to see him or how he was seeing himself.
Yeah.
All the classic X-Men suits looked really good. Wolverine had his brown suit in this one too. So.
Oh yeah, that was cool too. Yeah, because this is after the Claremont one we read, the Wolverine story with Frank Miller art.
But no, I mean, overall I really enjoyed it. Everything. This is a very solid comic, and I would totally pick it up again. And
yeah, I kind of want this in hardcover now, just to have, so I can read it whenever I want. Yeah. So what would you give?
I probably an 8.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this an 8 too. I thought this was better than because it got to be more fleshed out. It's better than Days of Future Past that we read before. But also the trade itself was just this story, whereas Days of Future Past was like 10 other issues of shit I don't care about, and then the one issue that we thought we were gonna read about. So if Days of Future Past had been this style, and I think they should bring this back, by the way, like being able to have like creators tell like basically a 4-issue story arc, but in one big giant size thing, would be fucking awesome. Like they should do that and have like it either be on its own continuity or be in continuity, but just a different storyline or something. Like different, not bound by what's going on in current continuity. That would be so cool, and I wish they would do that like as a format. But what are you gonna do? They already have too many books anyway. So but yeah, that would be cool if hey, I'm a creator, I want to tell this interesting story, but it's not in my normal continuity story. So let me just do this little one shot that's badass or whatever. So I think they should do this more. But yeah, I'm gonna give it an 8 too. I think it hit home. The villain was fucking man. I really wanted him to die at the end. Like I was like, I hope he gets shot and he's dead. And when
he gets shot in the head, and it really is dead.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. And then, but they showed him like alive at the end. I'm like, God damn it! Like, but like I said, I don't know if he comes back. I wonder if he does in Days of Future Past 2. But maybe we'll read that later on.
God Loves Man Kills Too.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, God Loves Man Kills.
That's because they have all good titles.
It's the same team and stuff too. So yeah, this Chris Claremont, like sometimes he's hit and miss with me, but this was definitely a very hard hit. Like he did a really good job, and yeah, I think that's all for this one. If you guys want to follow next week, I think we're reading Civil War.
That's right. We're going to revisit.
We've been talking about it so much in the last couple episodes that we're like, hey, let's just fucking read Civil War.
And I'm excited to revisit because I remember reading Civil War when it came out and just being like in awe of it.
Yeah, and this was like prime. I had just started working at the comic book store,
and obviously before the movies. So
yeah, and this is for all those of you who don't know. This isn't Captain America: Civil War like the movie, but it's basically that story where you have the heroes against each other about because of a bill that's going to be passed by the government that says like heroes should be registered or heroes should not be registered.
Yep, and
the heroes split based on that. So we're going to read that and. Either listen to us spoil it or read it beforehand and have some fun, listen to our commentary on it. So with that said, if you guys have any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can email us at planes, trains, and comic books, all one word, at gmail.com.
Don't forget to check out all our social media, Twitter, Instagram. We've got the YouTubes for exclusive content. We got some great hardcover reviews and our newest statue review of Swamp Thing. You got to check this out. The statue is massive.
It's awesome. And I love it. It's my child. But yeah, I guess we'll see you guys next time.
On the next one.
Bye. Well, folks, hope you enjoyed that episode.
If you did and you'd like to follow us on social media, our Facebook is Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. And our Instagram is @Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, all one word.
And be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more recommendations to add to your weekly pull list.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.